Hello there, I'm Eric Njoka and this is Race to Power on WION World is One. Thank you for joining us. Hong Kong's last major opposition party has disbanded after a vote by its members, the culmination of Chinese pressure on the city's remaining liberal voices in a years-long security crackdown. Chile has chosen a far-right candidate who happens to be the son of a Nazi party official as its new president. More about that shortly. Welcome to the show. We begin in Hong Kong. Amnesty International has called it the death knell for press freedom in Hong Kong. Britain's Foreign Secretary has called it a politically motivated prosecution. The UK's Shadow Foreign Secretary, Priti Patel, says it's an outrage to democracy, personal freedom and liberty. They're all talking about today's guilty verdict for the Hong Kong media baron, Jimmy Lai. Jimmy Lai is 78 years old. He has already spent about 5 years in jail, most of them in solitary confinement. This is because he was arrested in 2020, shortly after Beijing imposed a national security law in Hong Kong. The law was in response to widespread pro-democracy protests in Hong Kong back in 2019. Jimmy Lai was a prominent member of the city's pro-democracy movement, and he was among the most high-profile figures to be arrested after the national security law was imposed. China and the Beijing-backed Hong Kong government accused Lai of inciting divisions and glorifying violence. The Chinese authorities accused the media baron of using his now shuttered news outlet, Apple Daily, to publish seditious material. Today, Lai was found guilty on 1 count of sedition and 2 counts of conspiracy to collude with foreign forces. The head of Hong Kong's government was thrilled with the guilty verdict.
Jimmy Lai's reckless crimes were committed in full view of the public, with clear evidence. The court's conviction highlights the justice of the law and upholds Hong Kong's core values. The law never allows anyone, regardless of profession or background, to use the pretext of human rights, democracy, or freedom to openly harm their own country and compatriots.
Jimmy Lai reportedly fled to Hong Kong from mainland China back in the late 1950s. He worked his way up from the factory floor to become eventually an industrialist. And he entered the media business in the mid-1990s when he founded Apple Daily. That was just before the UK handed Hong Kong back to China. Britain had occupied, colonized and ruled the island for 156 years, but it agreed to hand Hong Kong back to China in 1997. Back then, China had agreed to let Hong Kong have limited autonomy. It was called the One Country, Two Systems formula. This was supposed to be in place for 50 years, meaning up to 2047. But in 2020, a year after pro-democracy protests swept Hong Kong, China decided to enact a tough national security law. They later updated it in 2024. It is under these new laws that Lai has been found guilty of colluding with foreign forces because he asked foreign nations to intervene on behalf of Hong Kong's pro-democracy activists. Hong Kong's former colonizer, the UK, has sharply criticized the guilty verdict against Lai. The media baron is a British citizen. He has been one since 1996. Lai's son, Sebastian, has even called on the UK to do more to ensure his father's freedom. The family says that Lai's health has been deteriorating in jail. They say he risks dying behind bars. Jimmy Lai is scheduled to be sentenced early next year, and the charges he has been found guilty of carrying, carry a life sentence. After today's verdict, Britain's Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper called for Lai's immediate release. She called the verdict politically motivated, but Beijing has hit back at any foreign interference.
The relevant judicial case is a purely internal affair of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region. We urge relevant countries to respect China's sovereignty and the rule of law in Hong Kong, refrain from making irresponsible statements regarding the adjudication of judicial cases in the region, and refrain from interfering in Hong Kong's judiciary or China's internal affairs in any form.
Lai's verdict comes just a day after Hong Kong's last opposition party disbanded. Hong Kong's Democratic Party voted to dissolve itself amid the ongoing security crackdown in the city. So the opposition has effectively ended. And now, with Jimmy Lai's guilty verdict, rights group say it is the death knell for Hong Kong's press freedom. As well, is it also the final nail in the coffin for the old one country, two systems formula? So what happens next in Hong Kong? Let's talk to Mr. Greg Swenson. He's an international affairs expert and also China analyst. Is now joining us live from London. Mr. Swenson, it's good to see you. Thank you very much for your time. Let's begin with what Lai's son said. He said that this is a punishment for printing the truth. Do you believe or agree with his statement?
Oh, I absolutely agree, but that's probably not all. I mean, it's of course printing the truth, and I think Jimmy Lai has been fantastic about that for years. But also, in many ways, he's also a religious martyr or a religious political prisoner. If he dies in prison, he will be a Catholic or a Christian martyr. And so it's a long list of problems that the mainland China government, the CCP, has with Jimmy Lai, and it's really a travesty.
Mr. Swenson, let me ask about how does this augur with activists in Hong Kong right now going forward? Is it the death of democracy in Hong Kong, or how do you see it?
I'm afraid it might be. It very well might be the death of freedom and democracy, or any kind of free speech in Hong Kong. You know, even Lord Sumption, Jonathan Sumption, who's really the UK's brightest political jurist, or judicial expert. You know, he resigned from his post in the courts in Hong Kong. I think most of the traditional British law or English law jurists have left. I'm not sure that they can proceed, especially if people look at what's happened to Jimmy Lai, you know, spending 1,000 days in solitary confinement. That's not a good message to freedom and democracy activists, and I think it's really a sad day for Hong Kong.
Jimmy Lai is a British citizen. What can the United Kingdom do now? Because China is saying we do not want foreign interference.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult, and I think it proves once again that it was a massive mistake trusting the Chinese with the handover in 1997. And you've seen the British do this again with handing over the Chagos Islands. And so I'm not sure that there's much they can do, even though he is a UK citizen. I would hope that Keir Starmer, who's, by the way, you know, a human rights lawyer by profession, can actually talk some sense into the CCP, into the Chinese government. But I doubt it. There's not a lot of optimism right now for the case for Jimmy Lai, or for democracy or freedom of speech in Hong Kong. It's getting worse before it gets better.
Getting worse before it gets better. Mr. Greg Swenson, it's good to see you. We'll have to end it there. Thank you for talking to us today.
Thanks for having me.
Let's move on now. Chile has chosen the new president, son of a Nazi party official and far-right candidate. Jose Antonio Cast is the country's new president-elect. Cast handed defeat to leftist candidate Jeanette Yara. The election results mark the country's sharpest rightward shift since 1990, when 17-year-long authoritarian rule of Augusto Pinochet ended. Cast managed to secure 58% votes, leaving Jeanette far behind with 41.7%. This was his third run for Chile's top office. His MAGA-inspired campaign pitch proved highly effective. Shouts of "Make Chile Great Again" were heard as Cast appeared before his supporters after a landslide victory. In his victory speech, Cast reiterated his stance on Trump-like immigration end crime crackdown.
And those criminals, those delinquents, their lives are going to change. Their lives are going to change. We are going to search for them. We are going to find them. And we are going to judge them. And then we are going to lock them up.
Cast is set to take office on March 11th next year and will become the first president to openly support the military regime since 1990. His victory follows years of left-of-center rule and is expected to reshape Chile's political landscape. Sentiment in the opposition camp were different. Tears rolled down the eyes of the supporters of Jeanette as soon as the election outcome became clear. Jeanette appeared before her supporters to concede defeat. In her concession speech, she said that democracy has spoken loud and clear.
We clearly said that the Chileans' gains can't be put at risk. The rise in pensions, free higher education, the 40 hours of work, the zero copay, women's rights, the freedom to love and decide. All these must be taken care of.
40 horas.
Once seen by many Chileans as too extreme, Cast has garnered support from voters increasingly worried about crime and immigration. His anti-immigration plan, which opponents call unrealistic, involves inviting undocumented migrants to leave. He has also touted massive cuts in public spending. Cast has pledged that within 18 months, he will reduce public spending by $6 billion. Cast's victory marks the latest win for a resurgent right wing in Latin America. He joins the ranks of Ecuador's Daniel Noboa, El Salvador's Nayib Bukele, and Argentina's Javier Milei. Thousands of protesters have thronged the streets across Brazil. Brazil's major cities are witnessing demonstrations against a bill to lower the jail sentence of former President Jair Bolsonaro and his supporters for plotting to overthrow democracy after he lost his 2022 re-election bid. These are the visuals from Sao Paulo. Thousands of protesters gathered here on Sunday as part of nationwide demonstrations against the bill that would ease the punishment for Bolsonaro, who was convicted in September to 27 years in jail.
Because the law applies to everyone. It's not because he's a former president that the law doesn't apply to him. We are here together, along with Alexandre de Moraes, a minister of the Supreme Federal Court, who is fulfilling his duties.
It is the first major demonstration since Bolsonaro started serving his prison sentence last month in a cell that was made for him at a federal police building in Brasilia. Brazil's lower house of Congress approved a bill Wednesday that could cut Bolsonaro's sentence to just over 2 years. The bill still needs to be considered by the Senate.
This project is an adapted amnesty project because you end up reducing the sentence and the time Bolsonaro will spend in prison due to political interests. And it's a form of resistance against the left and social agendas.
The legislation would shorten prison sentences for all those convicted, including former Brazilian President Bolsonaro. This in connection with a riot on January 8, 2023, when Bolsonaro's supporters invaded government buildings in the Brazilian capital. West African regional bloc ECOWAS has threatened what it calls targeted sanctions on anyone obstructing Guinea-Bissau's return to civilian rule following last month's coup. The announcement came as presidents from across the region met in Nigeria for a biannual meeting. The agenda of the meeting was dominated by two recent coup attempts, a successful military takeover in Guinea-Bissau and a failed violent coup attempt in Benin. The twin disruptions of civilian rule have rattled the economic community of West African states, which condemned both at Sunday's summit.
The authorities shall impose targeted sanctions on individuals or group of persons that obstruct the transition process.
The president of ECOWAS also said that peacekeeping force deployed in Guinea-Bissau, a small coup-prone West African country since 2022, was authorized to provide protection to all political leaders and national institutions. ECOWAS was previously hit with a string of coups between 2020 and 2023 in Burkina Faso, Guinea, Mali, and Niger, all of whom are still under junta control.
Your Excellency, your Bishop, Your Excellency, Monsieur Léonard will follow this program. First of all, de l'allocution de son Excellence, le Président Tinubu, able to present by his material, Your Excellencies, Heads of State and Government.
Myanmar is besieged by civil war since 2021. Vast swathes of land is under control of rebels. Its last elected leader, Aung San Suu Kyi, is still in jail. Yet the military junta wants the world to believe that the upcoming election is anything but a sham. Addressing a press briefing, Zo Min Tan, a spokesperson for the Myanmar junta, dismissed global criticism of the elections. He affirmed that the polls are being held for the people of Myanmar and not for the international community. He also hinted at de facto ruler Min Aung Hlaing playing a key role in the country in a post-poll Myanmar.
The election is being held for Myanmar. It is being held for the people of Myanmar. It is not being held for the international community. Therefore, those who want to criticize may criticize. We, however, will proceed to achieve our original objective, which is to return to a multi-party democratic system. Min Aung Hlaing has experience in state duties. There are statements he has made in the past saying that if the state assigns him a duty, he will always apply his experience for the country.
These remarks assume significance owing to the military's dominance in the Myanmar's politics, even when Aung San Suu Kyi's National League for Democracy, NLD, ruled from 2015 to 2021. The military held 25% of the seats in the lower house and controlled three key ministries: defense, border, and home affairs. At present, Min Aung Hlaing has three roles. He is the acting president, commander-in-chief of the armed forces, as well as the chairman of the National Security and Peace Commission. In this backdrop, speculation is rife that he is eyeing the president's post, with military-backed Union Solidarity and Development Party likely to sweep the election. Previously, another junta chief, then Sen, served as the president from 2011 to 2016 after doffing his military uniform. The military junta's reaction comes after the European Union criticized the impending elections. In a statement on International Human Rights Day, EU High Representative Kaya Kallas flagged that conditions for free and fair elections are not in place. She claimed that this election was aimed to bolster legitimacy for the junta. Additionally, she also flagged the detention of thousands and large segments being prevented from participation in elections. Earlier, the ASEAN held that the cessation of violence and inclusive political dialogue must precede elections. While the first phase scheduled for on December 28th, the second phase of voting will take place on January 11th. There is no clarity yet on when power will be transferred to a civilian government. Although Suu Kyi's party had won a clear majority in the 2020 election, the junta assumed reins of power after staging a military coup on February 1st, 2021. The Indian government has introduced a new rural employment scheme in the lower house of parliament. It is a proposed update to the existing 2-decade-old Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act. The new VBG-Ramji bill proposes a number of changes. The updated act proposes to increase the guaranteed days of employment for rural Indian households. They will increase from the current 100 to 125. The previous system allowed for multiple types of works across various categories, but the new bill proposes to focus on 4 major types: water-related works, core rural infrastructure, livelihood-related infrastructure, and special projects to mitigate the impacts of extreme weather events. Another notable change is the introduction of a pause window. The new bill proposes to allow states to notify up to 60 days a year for agricultural work. This would pause all the rural projects, so rural workers may switch to sowing or harvesting crops. By allowing states to notify a pause in work, workers would not have to choose between their guaranteed work and farm work. The government says this will make more labor available during the sowing and harvest seasons and so help keep agricultural prices down. There are also proposed changes to how the guaranteed employment will be funded. At present, India's central government bears the entire wage cost for unskilled labor. However, the state governments pay for unemployment benefits when work is not available. The new bill wants to introduce a 60-40 center to state funding ratio. This will be 90 against 10 for India's northeastern and Himalayan states and 100% centrally funded for union territories without state legislators. Another major change is that weekly payments to the rural workers have been mandated. And this is breaking news from Sri Lanka. Authorities in Sri Lanka plan to arrest World Cup winning cricket captain Arjuna Ranatunga on corruption charges relating to his time as petroleum minister. Ranatunga and his brother are accused of changing the procedure for awarding long-term oil procurement contracts, making spot purchases at a higher cost. The Commission to investigate allegations of bribery or corruption has told a Colombo court that Arjuna is abroad and will be arrested on his return. The former minister's eldest brother, who was then chairman of the state-owned Ceylon Petroleum Corporation, was arrested on Monday and later released on bail. So this is the latest from Colombo. Authorities in Sri Lanka are planning to arrest World Cup winning cricket captain Arjuna Ranatunga on corruption charges relating to his time as petroleum minister. Ranatunga and his brother are accused of changing the procedure for awarding long-term oil procurement contracts, making spot purchases at a higher cost. The Commission to investigate allegations of bribery or corruption has told a Colombo court that Arjuna is abroad and will be arrested on his return. The former minister's eldest brother, who was then chairman of the state-owned Ceylon Petroleum Corporation, was arrested on Monday and later released on bail. Dasuni Athoda is our correspondent. She is now joining us on the phone. Dasuni, do we know when Arjuna will return to Sri Lanka?
Well, it is not yet understood of the exact date, and it is now also understood that the minister is well aware, the former minister rather, is well aware of the arrest upon his return. So it will be interesting to see whether he will kind of alter his schedule or be back in Sri Lanka as per the original schedule. Just like the Rajapaksa's, the Ranatunga family here is quite prominent both in the political as well as the sporting field. So this is a developing story, and we await more confirmation from the side.
All right, that is our correspondent, Dasunia Thauda. She's actually reporting on the latest development where the authorities in Sri Lanka are planning to arrest World Cup winning cricket captain Arjuna Ranatunga on corruption charges relating to his time as petroleum minister. Ranatunga and his brother are accused of changing the procedure for awarding long-term oil procurement contracts. And that's the latest on Race to Power on WION The World is One. Stay with us.
The stress of our world can take a toll on our physical and emotional health. Here, in New York's Catskill Mountains, lies a luxurious place of healing called WION Wellness Center. The WION Wellness Center provides 500,000 square feet of natural methods to manage diabetes, hypertension, chronic pain, obesity, depression, anxiety, and other conditions. We use the traditions of centuries-old natural science from India, yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy in personalized programs that help you take charge of your own health. A minimum 5-day stay is recommended for best results. Book now at yo1.com.
राष्ट्रीय स्वयंसेवक संघ